Hey guys, we're going to be doing some watercolor techniques today. We're going to be painting this skyline. I've drawn it in Sharpie just so you can see the outline, but you should draw yours using a triangle so you have perfectly right angles and perfectly parallel lines. And notice how I've left a space here. We're going to be working from here up, and then we're also going to work from here down. This part right here will not have any paint on it. So you're going to need a cup of water and some watercolor paints. Here we go. And I'm going to use black, but feel free to use either blue or purple. I would not use a light color. So to prepare my paints, I'm going to get some water, and I'm going to put it in this black. And I'm going to put 1 drop of just water, 2 drops, 3 drops, okay? Now, to get some really good color, I'm going to stir that probably 20 or 30 times. The more you stir, the darker color you'll get, okay, because it really gets that paint activated. These areas up here are for you to put paint in as well, and you can mix your colors. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do first, since I'm working from here up, wash my paintbrush out, is I'm just going to get this area wet from here up because I want it to run a little bit, and I'm careful to make sure that I don't get any water below that line or outside of the buildings that I've painted. So really saturate this paper. I'm getting a lot of water on it. This is good watercolor paper. This is Stratford cold press watercolor paper, so it can handle a lot of water without disintegrating. Okay, now I'm just going to be using paint, and I'm going to try, while I'm demonstrating, to stay inside the lines, and I can get a smaller brush if I need to. And notice how when I get down to that part where it's got water already on it, it is moving. Okay, and that's really what I want to happen. I want to get really, really dark black up here, and I want to get some light blacks and some light grays down here. And this right here is not dark enough for me, so I'm going to get in the paint, and since the paint is already wet, if you really get in there, you can get, and stir it around with your brush more, you can get a darker, more opaque watercolor. See how much more opaque that is? It's not quite as see-through. I can't see the paper through it as much, and that you get from just stirring it some more and putting your paint in there. Okay, I got a little bit of water on there. So if you get outside the lines, I'm just going to try to lift with a piece of paper towel or tissue. Okay. Now if you get enough water on here, it should stay wet while you're doing the other top parts of the buildings. You can always add more water, but make sure that you're adding clean water because I really don't want this dark at all. The best way to get a nice clean line, and it's hard to do while I'm filming, is to really rest your hand on the paper. Okay, I'm going to go back to this brush. When you're painting flat, square objects, the best way to do that is with a flat brush. Notice how the bristles are coming out of a flattened piece of metal here. There are flat brushes and round brushes. When you're painting corners and edges, the best brush is a flat brush. Go back over that part there. Really dig in, get some more intense color there, because I want it to be darkest at the top and nice and light at the bottom. So I'm using the wet on wet paper technique to really blend that paint down into this area down here. Okay, it's getting lighter, so I need to stir more, really get my paintbrush in there. And I'm going to get this one too. I want that a little bit darker. So any areas that I want darker, I'm going to go back into this really concentrated. See how there's not a lot of water in here anymore? It's mostly just a lot of dark paint. Get in there. And the more you stir, the more you dig into that paint, the darker color you'll get, the more opaque color you'll get. Okay, so all I'm going to do now, wash out my paintbrush. It's just water. And I'm just going to move that around a little bit. Okay, just with water. Just water. Okay, if you need to, dry your paintbrush off, go back, dip it in your paint, and get some more on there. Some really intense color. So I don't want lines where the paint just starts and stops. I don't really like that. Okay. All right, you can get the paint to move around a little bit by doing this. Okay. So if I want my paint to move around, I can tip it a little bit. It should stop where my painting has stopped. And if I don't want it to move anymore, I can always stop and lift some of that so that it stops moving. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is get some clean water. Oops. Wash my brush out, and I'm just going to get this area wet. Just below the line, don't go above that line. Okay, and first I'm gonna try to make a reflection of this. So here's some tall buildings, here's some tall buildings, and then it gets shorter. So I'm trying to make a mirror reflection of what's here. So first I'm gonna go this way, still trying to make sure that I stay on this line here, and then I'm also gonna go this way. So if you go back and forth with your brush, you can really get it saturated with water, and then that's when some things really start moving and doing interesting things. So a lot of water, but it's just a reflection of this shape here. Okay, and now that I have some water, I don't want this to move, so I'm picking that up a little bit. Okay, and you can dry it. I'm going to take my really, really saturated black paint, stir, 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 and I'm going to be putting some reflections in the water. Here's my tall building. There's some shorter buildings. Here's a tall building. Here's a tall building. There's a really tall building, so I want to get a lot of paint there. Building, building. Uh-oh, got over on the edge. And then here's a couple of tall buildings here, and then here's one tall building. Okay. Try to clean that line up. Now I'm going to go over and add more. Stir, 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 really get that paint in there. Okay. And we can move it around a little bit. If I want it to go back. can move it a little bit left and right. I still want it to look like it's a silhouette of this though. All right. I want just a little bit more there because this is the tallest building. Move that around. And at the bottom, if I want, I can dab a little bit off. Okay. So don't want a whole lot on the bottom here.